apart from the bike, I think the most essential bit of kit while bikepacking is probably your tent. If the weather's against you, it's wet and it's windy, you can manage just about anything except not having a tent. If you're somewhere warm and it's not wet, you can just have a hammock, you don't need a tent. But Ireland, Scotland, you definitely need a tent. So the tent I have is an MSR Hubba Nx. It's quite a high-end tent, it's quite expensive, but I've used it for about 150 nights, 50 each I'd say in the last 2 years. It goes up quickly, about 4 minutes, comes down in a similar time. In my experience, it's been 100% weatherproof in terms of rain and wind. And I have seen strong wind and heavy rain several times at this stage. So I'm going to stop here and we're going to put it up, and you'll see how long it'll take, and you'll see perhaps why I like it. It's also good for storing luggage, panniers. Basically there's a porch on it, you can sit up in it. Like a lot of small tents, you can't sit up. They're those kind of lying down bivvy type things. If you're going to be stuck in your tent in bad weather for a few hours, you probably want to be able to sit up in it. So yeah, let's have a look at it. So I've talked a bit about the MSR tent I have and how I'm very, very keen on it. I've had it now for 6 or 7 years. I've probably camped 150 nights in it, I would say. I had to repair the shock cord, but otherwise it's fine. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so I have the tent packaged. There's the poles and the inner and outer sheet. I actually keep the poles separately when I'm bike packing because it fits into the bag a bit easier. So let's see how quickly we can get this up. The tent weighs about 1.2 kilos, so it's pretty much ultra light. And as I said, takes up very little room in the pannier, which is the attraction. The poles come as a single unit that's joined together with shock cord, and you basically just pop them all into each other as I'm doing here. There's 4 pole sections within that single unit, a long one that runs the length of the tent, one in the middle that holds the roof up, and then one at either end that expands each end outwards. I probably should confess that the way I'm doing it here is a bit different from the instructions. I normally put the pole together first and then attach the ground sheet at one end, but the instructions tell you to stake out the ground sheet first and then put the pole on top of it. That is a good idea if it's windy because it stops it blowing around when it's half constructed. Finish sheet. The bright red element is the base of the tent, which curves around up the sides by a few centimeters, and that's the waterproof part that keeps damp from coming through. And then the upper part of the tent is a mixture of mesh and very fine white material. That serves the dual purpose of keeping out insects, particularly midges. It does work for midges, but allowing the tent to breathe well so you don't end up with a load of condensation on the inside. Each of the 4 corners has a small metal piece with a circular hole through which each of the poles loops through, and the tension of that is what holds the tent up, as we'll see here. Once those 4 are in place, you then clip the black plastic clips onto the long pole running the length, and then you also pop the cross pole in the center, so it goes into 2 eye holes that are on either side of the central part of the tent. So here I'm clipping that center pole into place, putting it through the 2 metal hoops that are in the center of the tent, and once both those are in place, you see you've created the sitting space inside the tent. And that's the inner sheet put up. Turn the ground so I get the zip on this side. Pretty quick. Next we put the green outer sheet on. That provides the waterproofing, of course, and the colour also means it's quite good for stealth camping and you won't be that windy once it's on. Now the outer sheet, easiest thing is to align the zip with the
corner first. So and then find the red pieces and attach them.
It's a little hard to see here, but basically the outer tent has red eyelets at the top of the zip and where the vent is, and you put the center pole to each of these eyelets in turn to hold the roof up.
Same on the opposite side where the vent is. I think at this point it's going to be weatherproof. Well, once I get this one down, I guess. So. And then finally tent poles. And you tent peg at the sides, which just gives you quite a decent porch. Same on the back. And then guy ropes.
So there's one peg for each of the four corners, and then one peg for the porch, and then one peg where the back vent is as well. In calm dry weather like this, you can actually get away with not staking out the guy ropes at all, but there's 4 of them and then another 4 that can be attached for really rough weather. Another confession here, I have never actually used those 4, although after the storm I had on the Outer Hebrides, I have taken to packing one of them because I've realised it's useful if you can stretch the side facing a storm. Stretching that out from the inner sheet is useful because the wind can blow the two together and you'd get some seepage there otherwise. So it probably is worth packing that one. So here you have the tent up, which took about 4 minutes. It'll come down in a similar speed. Let's have a look around it.
And you should get a sense from this that although it's small, it is relatively spacious. If we have a look inside. Okay, so you've got quite a large porch area. My panniers fit in there, happily enough. We have the inner tent, which again, it's both small and relatively spacious. I mean, I can sit up. I'm kneeling up actually at the moment in it. And again, you get the idea of the space for the bags. And in my experience, it's totally weatherproof so far. The only weak point being the floor, because it's quite old now. If the ground is very wet, then I get some light seepage to the floor.
And here it is in use a week later with sleeping mats and sleeping bags added. So I'm just sitting up here, just woken up this morning. Birds on, going around.
Also worth mentioning is the handy pocket down one end where I keep my glasses. And yep, being able to stand up, I think, sit up, being able to sit up is very handy. So I definitely say that's a plus.
It's also nice not to actually have to crawl in and out of the tent, which some of the lower models impose on you, particularly unpleasant if the ground is wet.
Okay, so how quickly does this come down? Pretty fast. We just remove the pegs.
The rapid disassembly and packing is useful both if you've bad weather, but also if you're stealth camping and it's time to move on quickly.
And then one from each corner. Then you can basically turn it over and unhitch the red tabs. The first one's always the hardest, but once you've got one of them done, the rest collapse very quickly indeed. And you can remove both at the same time, which helps if it's wet. You don't want the inner tent staying up and getting rained on while you've got the outer one coming down. Okay, poles just snap apart like so. Bag. Tent pegs likewise into the bag. And then with the sheets, there's no need to fold them in any particular way, you can just stuff them. Obviously if they're wet, you want to take them out and dry them at the first opportunity. But it goes up damp okay, so even if you're in that unfortunate situation of being in wet weather that just isn't stopping, it's not too disastrous. The one downside is the fact that you put up the inner tent first, but you know, it's not up long. So unless it's absolutely lashing down and there's no breaks, you're not going to get a significant amount of water in this. You can fit the poles in the bag as well. I tend not to do that bike packing. It's easier to fit the tent in a pannier if the poles are separate. It will fit with the poles in it, but I just found that more straightforward. And that's it basically. Easily fits in a pannier with quite a lot of space left actually.
It will also happily enough fit in a handlebar bag. I've also seen people do inventive things like tying the poles underneath the crossbar. And that's the Hubba Nx1 person tent. Give the channel a follow, like and share the video, and feel free to ask any questions you may have in the comments and I'll reply.